So we have three people that have been building bridges with the US for a long time and have wide experience. So we have to go fast. I'm going to do the first question in order to set up. And I'm going to be straight. When do you think is the right time to go to the US if you are a company, a Spanish tech company, let's say?
I mean, from a tech company standpoint, I think you have to obviously have a proof of concept and be doing really well in your home country. I mean, the U.S. is not only a really big market, but pretty competitive market. So I think you need to be ready to face the challenges of the United States, both from a tech standpoint as well as just legal and financial challenges, and just the geographic challenge of how big and spread apart and different the East Coast is from the West Coast versus the South versus the Midwest, et cetera.
What about you?
No, I agree. Either you make it from the beginning, you don't have anything built, and you go to study at Stanford and you stay there and you build it from there, but you compete with a very big pool, and it's very expensive to build things in San Francisco. Only Google and the big ones build things, and the other companies just outsource somewhere else. Or you wait until you have grown a base in Spain or Portugal or wherever you are. We calculate that you have 30, 35, 40 employees, and you have already a culture established. Because you cannot delegate opening US. It's too important and too competitive. You cannot delegate and buy a VP and hire somebody to do it for you. The founding team needs to go there, and the operations need to continue in Spain. And you need to have certain structure to be able to do both.
And what about you, Joe?
I would add to that I don't think you're ever ready unless you genuinely have the ability to execute a fully validated, fundable business plan. Okay. And I think in the development of that business plan is where you will determine what your genuine potential for the US market is, what your real potential as a company is in the US market. And it kind of begs the question, well, is the question, am I ready for the US market? Or is the question, do I really have the potential to go to the US market?
Yes. While I was in San Francisco, one of the things that really got my attention is that I found lots of Spanish people that went there with a sometimes too candid idea. And after 6 months, they get out of money and they have to go back. So I would like to ask you about Silicon Valley, how it's getting there, but also how do you plan the financials as you were pointing? Because I think 6 months there is like 2 years here. The speed things go, but the way you spend money too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Which would be your piece of advice if they plan to go there?
Right. I think that you should dimension your round to do this, right? You do a round for US expansion, and that should be a key target that you want to prove to get to the next round and a higher valuation. You dimension your raise to be able to achieve that. And that should be part of the financials, the projections, and everything. Because it's expensive, because it's hard, and it's to be the full attention of the founders and also of the investors. The investors should be helping you instead of just dragging along a plan that they're not fully committed. So it's very important that it's part of your raising fund when you want to do that.
We have the example of Alien Vault, I think.
Sure.
Julio Casal, that he was very smart. I totally admire what he did. And the way he raised money there, but he also got very quick the way American make business.
Right.
So what do you think about that? What's the main difference once you are starting to talk about selling there or having partners? How would you tell somebody to cope with them? My piece of advice would be that most people or almost everybody is willing to give you 30 minutes, but don't waste their time. Like, make your homework, prepare, read about them before going, and then offer something. But that would be my piece of advice for Spanish people willing to go there. What would you say? Once you have your first appointment?
Right.
Or
No, I don't want to monopolize, and I'd love to hear your opinion.
No, any of
but
you.
really, Silicon Valley is the place where a deal can happen over the table, over just a coffee or lunch. You can meet a business angel, and he can cut a check for $500,000 to you. Not just, you're not coming out of the blue, you're coming introduced to the trust network. Somebody said, hey, listen to this guy, he's very smart. But this can happen. This cannot happen most of the time in Spain. But you have to be to the point. Business in US is fast, it's very fluid. You don't wine and dine people. You don't spend 2 months meeting the kids and kissing hands. It needs to be fast, it needs to be to the point, and you need to prove your value. and then things can happen.
Yeah.
I think there's also a little bit of a misconception about Silicon Valley, and I think many startups in Spain, the comment that you made, I've seen them all come with their business plan under one arm and $2 million in the other, and 18 months later they pack their bags and they go home with nothing because they've burnt all their execution money on validating basically and discovering and figuring out all the things that they didn't know about operating in the United States. But I'd also say that Silicon Valley may not be the right place to go. Mm-hmm. It's highly likely that your customers will not be in Silicon Valley. It may be a great place to potentially get funding, for sure, but enormous chances that your customers will not be in Silicon Valley. Your customers may be in Washington, they may be in New York, they may be in Chicago if you're in the retail industry. They may be in Seattle. So I would strongly encourage people that, if you're going to make a move, make sure you know where your customers are first and make the move to where your customers are. And then you've probably got higher chances of finding smart money to fund you within that customer environment.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to piggyback off your point. I mean, I think, again, if you're looking at Silicon Valley or you're looking to get money, I mean, you do want to have that network available, right? Whether it's, through, getting accepted to one of the really good incubators out there or getting VC money. But I think when people look at, funding, et cetera, when you're going to be married to a VC, it's not just about, the fact that they're giving you money, but it's really about what network are they opening up to? What sort of strategic partner can they help you and assist you in essentially getting to your goals, right? Because it's a lot more than just money, especially if obviously you're going to be expanding to a new country like the United States.
Yeah, a good example of what you're saying is Spora Home. They raised $40 million from KPCV, and it was the first Spanish company raising that big amount in a Series B from Silicon Valley, like very classical or pioneer VC for a company that is not doing any operations there.
Right, and to me this is really transformational because Kleiner Perkins hardly ever does direct investment out of the US. And when we started doing this 10 years ago, they listened to us, they considered it, but they were not ready to invest unless you were already redomiciled to Delaware and you had operations in San Jose and the founding team was already started in San Francisco. So you had to run with all the relocation risk, if you will. They will not commit before that. Now, the last company that we are now closing the round is called Buguru, and we're bringing it to US. It's a great company. They came to Madrid, and they met the CEO in Madrid, and they are committing to the round in Madrid. They are running the redomiciliation risk with us. They're saying, okay, we know it's a good company, we trust you have done it before, let's run this risk together. And it's a big change for us, that we don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, I think they are more open now to fund companies out of the valley because it's too packed.
Exactly.
And looking for talent. So they are more looking into the metrics of growth and customer acquisition and revenue more than just coming here, staying there, and they know half of the check they are signing is going to go to real estate. So at some point it's like,
exactly.
It's a better decision.
They can see that you can actually build competitive advantage by being outside of Silicon Valley, what you were mentioning. Here the cost are maybe a fourth of what would be an engineer in Silicon Valley. Too. So by flipping the company and going to US with only the management level, you have a competitive advantage, which is a low-cost infrastructure in Spain. And also, it has been done before. We sold companies in US. You have the case of Alien Vault. They start to trust Spain as a good source of innovation.
Yeah, especially engineers, I guess.
Right.
I would also add your comment about Spora Home. I mean, I think it's really important that you understand what the investment sweet spots are of VCs in different areas, and the sweet spots in Silicon Valley are very high. So Spora Home having the ability to raise 40 million, he was probably in the right place to do that. But if you're a company looking to raise 5 million, then maybe Silicon Valley VCs are not the right place to go, which again kind of...
It's too small for them.
Yeah, it's too small. And that kind of brings me back to the point that if you don't go to Silicon Valley and you go to Seattle or you go to Chicago, you may get a better chance of sitting down with VCs whose sweet spot is 5 million, or get the 5 million here, which...
So we've been talking so far about Silicon Valley, but what about the other cities? Alien Vault has operations and an office in Austin. Glamping Hub, it has in Boulder, Colorado. There are more and more Spanish entrepreneurs, as we saw last week in New York City too. Me, myself, and where I work in the Venture City, we are Miami-based with an office in San Francisco. So what do you think about the other options that are like rising tech hubs in the US?
Right. I think it's becoming pretty mature. So another transformational sign is that this deal I was mentioning about Buguru, it was these Silicon Valley investors that were bringing in this deal. It was them pushing us not to be in Silicon Valley because it's a company that sells to the banking industry. They prefer it to be closer to Wall Street. And I love that. I love the fact that they are becoming global themselves. That they grew accustomed to go to board meetings from San Jose to San Francisco and never take a plane. And now they're realizing that in order for themselves to get the best deals and for the companies to grow properly, they need to go global or at least national to have the company based in New York or Boston or one of the hubs that you were mentioning. And that's a great sign of maturity.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent it's not dissimilar to what you would do in Europe.
Right.
You know, if you were looking to expand your operations throughout Europe, it would be logical for you to have an office in Paris and an office in Berlin and an office in London. So I think you should view the United States in a similar way. I mean, the geography and the demographics and the different cultures in the United States. I think there's a huge justification for being present in different cities within the United States, because it is a different modus operandi in each of those cities.
Excuse me. We were talking about the cities. Also, if you have to hire somebody there, who would be your first hire? Sorry.
Probably a CEO.
You could put an American CEO?
Mm-hmm. Or a product guy. I mean, somebody that obviously understands the competition, understands sort of the customer and how to present the product, if you will, to the customer and
Okay.
what American people like, what we look for, if you will, et cetera.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Let's let you go.
Or I see the trend of business developers more than management.
I was going to comment that. We all learn from prior experience, and my experience hiring American CEOs was terrible. And they really kind of convey the passion and the ability to convey the idea and the company vision like the founders. So what has worked best for me, and again, we all have partial experience, is getting the CEO of the company to go to US and open the market, and then getting a VP of sales to help him with introductions, with opening doors and the rest.
That's what I'm seeing lately.
That would be ideal, but beggars are not choosers, right?
What I've seen is everyone has a different experience.
Exactly, absolutely.
That's why we're talking here about those experiences. But I've often seen that taking the founder to run the operation in the United States, to be the CEO in the United States, can be sometimes a huge distraction from the core business that they've created in their local market.
Therefore my point
you cannot run your company in Spain or in any European country from the US. I mean, people think they can, you can't.
Absolutely. Hence my point before of having enough structure in Spain, because otherwise it's going to fall to pieces. So we fully agree. Yeah. And something that we like a lot, and something that is happening in companies we like, is when you have two people who can step up to be the CEO, like co-CEOs or people that have been doing companies before together, have extreme trust. So you can have one running the operation in Spain and the other opening the new market. That's ideal.
Totally.
But beggars are not choosers. You have to adapt.
Okay, and now let's go to the friction point. I think, maybe there are some more. I think now it's becoming more difficult to go to the US. Not the company, like business-wise it is, but not talent-wise. I'm referring to the visa issues.
Right.
So what do you think? What's going on now? And do you think it's some, I don't know, change in the horizon, or do you think it has changed a lot? I'm seeing more and more people that I know that have to come back because of visa issues. So I don't know if you think it's the right timing now with this new situation, or change in the visa policy, or is business as usual?
I think it depends on who it is that's moving to the United States. You know, I think what we were just saying about the founders being the ones that move to the United States, I think the investment visas are still
Okay, so
a really good option.
The E2.
The
I think.
E2.
Okay.
I mean, you can get very easily a 5-year E2 visa if you have a good business plan and you can demonstrate the investment that you're going to make in the United States. And then if you can demonstrate that you're also going to hire people, you can even transfer some people from your organization in Spain over to the United States, so technical staff or engineering staff, whatever, with L1s or something similar. They're shorter term, 1 year or 2 year. But I would say that it depends on who it is you're transferring.
No, but I think it's an important point before, like, dreaming going to the US, everything seems fine. Like, all the things we've said, you can be, like, checking, and then you get to this point, and it's maybe the blurry one or the one that is not that easy to know if you check or not.
Yeah. It's good to know that we have a good agreement with US. You can go there for 3 months, so you don't need a visa. You
And
can
check.
just go there, officially you're on vacations, meeting
Yeah.
investors, it's your vacation anyway, nothing happens. Nobody checks. But if you want to stay longer, then you need a visa. In my experience, it has never been an issue. Investors would invest in the company without having the visas locked for the founders or the founding team.
Yeah.
I was personally scared when Trump won the elections because of this nativist push. I think we are all Californians, right?
Well, we were
seen the
scared
same
for a
way.
lot of reasons.
For a lot of reasons. But this was one that, America has been made by immigrants. And this is very clear. You go to California, nobody's born there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody comes from abroad. And for me, it was very scary that this nativist push would maybe limit the visa input and hence stifle one of the engines of growth of Silicon Valley. So far, the push has been to like low-income workers, which is sad also, but doesn't affect our business. Let's see what happens moving forward. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of immigration and tax law, and so again, I mean, I agree. I haven't seen any sort of issues. I mean, if anything, maybe there's been a little bit of a slowdown as far as the visa process. Another thing to note, again, is if you come on a visa and you stay over 183 days, either on a tourist visa or on obviously a regular visa, then you become a tax resident of the United States. And then with that, there's a ton of other tax implications as far as reporting any of your Spanish companies, or I should say just non-US companies, bank accounts, et cetera. So obviously also be aware of the time you spend in the States does ultimately affect potentially filing taxes in the state as well.
Okay, good. So before we leave, would you like to give a final tip in order how to navigate the US business world?
If I may, I think the Spanish environment has matured a lot. We've been doing this for 10 years. 10 years ago, it was scary for today's standards. And a pivotal point was 2017. In 2017, we had a 45% increase in venture investment. We got to close to 800 million invested in a year. That was impressive. And then last year, it was over $1 billion, so we get this 20% growth, which is fantastic. We put Spain in the map of innovation, and Barcelona and Madrid are great cities for innovation. In 2017, at the same time, I read a very interesting survey that was about students. The question was, how much do you feel that you are in control of your future career once you graduated? The answer in US was 70%. In Spain, it was 17%.
Okay.
So most of Spanish feel that they don't have any control on their destiny. They have this perception of risk that pushes them towards corporations, big companies, don't run any risk, be sure, be careful. And to me, this is the big difference between how students and big, young, talented people that have ideas perceive risk. In US, it's just go get it, and in Spain, still, we have work to do. And if you go with the Spanish mindset to US, you'll fail. 100%, you'll fail. And this can be perceived in a half-an-hour conversation. You need to get into this risk tolerance and failure tolerance of an American.
Good. Good.
That fear is sometimes not a bad thing. In the sense that I would also recommend that that you really validate your business plans before you come here, and ensure that they are absolutely appropriately funded. Because it's extremely easy to run out of money in the United States. And you wouldn't believe how fast you can burn money with your projects in the US market. And in some circumstances with very little in return over the initial 12 to 18 month period when you launch there. So I would absolutely ensure that you have the appropriate funding for the business plan that you want to go to the US with. And it's usually probably at least double what you think it should be.
As the accountant in the room, I'll just say that obviously if you're going to go to the United States and seek funding, you want to have the appropriate structure. So meaning that a lot of people look for VCs, they look at a C Corp, which has a lower 21% tax rate. And, a lot of people also think about, potentially switching their IP from, let's say, Spain to the United States because of the tax rates in the US are a lot lower. So, there's a lot of topics when it comes to, that or even, stock options versus restricted stock units and a lot of stuff. But, I think as you, especially if you're sort of putting on those pants and getting that VC funding, you should also be aware of the potential cross-border structuring transactions between the US and Spain, for example.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks for coming and thanks for your
Thanks for
tips
having
and
us.
knowledge.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thank you.